It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rob here in my basement lair for another State of the Dungeon address. This particular State of the Dungeon address was for the game that took place on the 6th of May, the year 2021. The game was Mighty Protectors. All players were in attendance. When we picked up the game after refreshing everybody's memory about what had happened, the players were in the sub-basement slash bunker underneath a delicatessen in Munich, Germany. About 5 blocks away from the GiftedCon, where they had tracked a mysterious gifted known as Worst Case Scenario, who may have something to do in connection with the disappeared gifted that they've taken a keen interest on, since 2 of their members are now vanished of their larger group. So, while they were down there, they found out that down in this basement, behind a bunker that was protected by a force field and several large security doors, which Muscles basically shredded, there's a largish underground room, artificial lighting, and 2 large computer banks, which Bulwark had been hacking to find out that they contained a great deal of information on people, their movements throughout Western Europe and around the world, but primarily in Europe. So, with that information, they also had explored the room a little bit, found out that there's another door leading out into a hall where a normal guy wearing a lab coat was just walking through. Didn't look like anything too extraordinary. But as the group all got together, the door opposite the bulkhead door that they had smashed opened itself. Into the room came 2 men, a woman, and another man in combat garb. The 2 men were dressed reasonably in lab coats and formal dress slacks and everything. The woman was pretty quiet and didn't really do a lot. She didn't take much of a role in the scenario. The person who was decked out in combat garb had basically what looked like SWAT gear. He had a shotgun and some other weaponry. Things that the group had faced down before, so they weren't too intimidated. He was clearly tensed in case they tried something, but what he could have done, no one knows. Even so, they were greeted respectfully by the taller man in the lab coat, making sure that they weren't going to attack, destroy anything, or what have them. Once they responded civilly, he basically said, "All right, well, what you've done, we're not holding against you. This is what we are." He explained that he worked for a group called Hardline, and their function was to try to anticipate the revelation of new gifted. Them activating, containing any damage, and basically taking this as a big clearinghouse of information and giving that information out to people who will be able to then help contain any levels of chaos. They're very much as their stated purpose to try to stem the tides of chaos that are sure to come about with superheroes entering into the world. Now, the group has already kind of dealt with some of that chaos, of course, themselves being superpowered beings, so they seem to be somewhat sympathetic. And again, as the dialogue went on, the player characters, basically expressed that, they were ambivalent. Obviously, some of them had their hackles up at the idea of being tracked and traced. He did reveal that, for instance, their organization had knowledge on every member in the group. But again, it's the year 2021, it's the year 2020. So, yeah, the information age, information on just about everybody is out there if you know where to look. So it wasn't too shocking. Quite honestly, we're all kind of used to that by now, I think. So, Yeah, they basically he explained what they were there for. Explained that their organization was basically benevolent, and that it was already operating under the jurisdiction of several large entities, and we're already in the sphere of knowledge that Veronica has. She herself is a client to their services. So the group's like, okay, well, this was kind of awkward because we've lost track of the guy we were hunting. And they showed him a picture. Through Herculean effort, they were able to get a clear image of the man calling himself Worst Case Scenario, who was clearly gifted after a demonstration of his abilities. And he promised that he would plug it into their data network, and in about 6 to 8 hours he should be able to get them an identification on who this person is, what possible significance he might have to the disappearance of the other gifted. They accepted this as being a decent enough thing and basically left. They called off the police, so there was no police entanglements. And they warned the group that the hallway they had come through was going to be filled with concrete, and now that that particular avenue was breached, they wouldn't be able to use it anymore, to use other means if they needed to contact them, and that information was still going to be given to them. So the group went back to GiftedCon, where they checked their timepieces and realized that the free-for-all was coming up, where any gifted who wanted to flex their abilities were to be allowed to do so for the cheering of the crowd. And of course this could only actually happen because Paradigm is around, and Paradigm can set the reality of the combat zone into professional wrestling reality, where nobody really gets seriously hurt, and that everything still looks as amazing as it would. It's just nobody ever gets hurt. They may get knocked flat, knocked goofy, what have you. And even though, yeah, we know that pro wrestling can have very real lasting effects, in this particular case, they're safe. So the group returned in time for the free-for-all, and I then asked them if anybody would be interested in entering. Muscles, of course, stepped forward. He can't wait to show off his abilities. The others were a bit more reticent. However, after thinking about it a bit, Sentinel decided he was going to enter, and then Bulwark shortly after. So 3 of the group are getting in on this free-for-all. Psyghost didn't express any interest, and Rook decided maybe he felt he didn't have combat abilities that would stack up well, although he has more than he lets on. But he also just likes to stay out of the limelight, so this would do it. But although of course they stayed on hand to watch. So since Muscles entered first, he was allowed his first pick, or his first combat. Now, all the combats were single elimination. Everybody would get matched up. Survivors would go on to round 2, and then 3 and 4, etc. So the first matchup that anybody in the group had been involved in was Muscles versus the Ninja. Yeah. This made everybody's night because everybody is kind of tired of the Ninja. Now, just to remind everybody, the Ninja is a kind of the black sheep of their happy little group of gifted. As far as the greater group, not just the at the table group, but they've recruited a number of other people, including some youngsters who have picked up abilities, who all knew each other, which is kind of odd. But this group has given them such stalwarts as Doorman and Extra Crispy, who've already demonstrated their abilities are useful. Also, Dr. Terrible, who really needs to come up with a better name soon, also has shown that he knows how to use his abilities, even though he hasn't really developed the kind of emotional maturity to work with the group. But the sad sack of the group is the Ninja. His abilities had basically allowed him to be a ninja without working for the skills. So he has the ability to go invisible. He has the ability to deliver absolutely devastating combat strikes. He has the ability to cling to vertical surfaces. The problem is he's never worked to get in shape, so he still, for all the world, looks like a very, very out of shape, obese man-child, because that's how he acts. Completely self-indulgent, no discipline at all, but he likes to spout wisdom like he is possessed of ninja skills and knowledges. So, bless you. Despite the fact that he can barely lift his leg up high enough to deliver a sidekick, but if he hits, his gifts allow him to do absolutely devastating strikes. So he gets by on his abilities only. And he's not afraid of blowing his own horn about how good he is. His skills do make him, in his own limited way, quite effective. Of course, if he trained and got better, who knows where he'd be. But he got to go up against Muscles. Muscles doesn't care for his kind of sauce. So, when they got together, Muscles, first of all, tried, I believe, paralyzing spit on him. He found out that one of the ninja's other abilities is that he is actually quite evasive. He has super reflexes, which allow him to get out of the way of attacks without having to move very much, which is important for him. Just enough so that Muscles was having a really hard time hitting. He also discovered one of the abilities that the ninja has developed, a paralyzing strike, a nerve strike, which he has at a very low level of power, but it basically causes a person to make an endurance save or be paralyzed for a while. It is difficult to break out of it, but it allowed the ninja to hit him. Muscles has no real great defense. He's a huge man and relatively easy to hit. And he hit him, and of course, Muscles has terrible luck resisting anything involving endurance. So he was paralyzed and at the mercy of the ninja, who proceeded to start shin kicking him. Fortunately for him, Muscles snapped out of it and started trying to attack back, only to fall victim to another paralyzing strike. This was the last one, though. He did snap out of it quite quickly, and he pummeled the ninja pretty hard. He found out the ninja actually does have some toughness to him. He was actually rolling really well for his saving throws to roll with the blows. So even though he was taking a lot of damage, a lot of it was kind of being shed by him rolling the blow and tapping into his power, which is kind of how that works. And eventually he just got wiped out of energy to the point he couldn't fight back, and he surrendered, which Muscles still took another final swing after he surrendered, and the ninja vanished because he can. So Muscles wins. The ninja actually still put on a halfway decent showing, a couple of critical hits in there, and so he didn't exactly look terrible in the offing. He stood up to Muscles, but Muscles won. That's the important thing. The next fight was, of course, other heroes were fighting too. I'm not going to give a blow-by-blow on the entire tournament, because as far as the heroes are concerned, the most of the more milquetoast supers got brushed out after the first round. One example of this was Sentinel versus Sugar Rush. Now, Sugar Rush is a weedy kid. He's about 16 years old. Here it looks like he's 16 years old. He is 18. But he's all arms and legs. And his power is that he is constantly ramped up like he had downed an entire case of energy drinks. And he's super fast. That's really it. I mean, that's his very narrowly focused power. He doesn't have a full suite like the others have. But he does what he can. He can do a flurry of blows and combine the pummeling, so he can actually inflict decent pummeling damage. But here's the thing. Sentinel now is wearing armor because Sentinel and Bulwark decided they were going to show up wearing their brand new armor they got for their birthday presents. Which kind of makes this much, much tougher for anybody to really hurt them until we get to the big fights that we're ramping up to. So Sugar Rush tried and basically gave him a tickling sensation. This is one of the few times that Sentinel actually got beaten in initiative. Sugar Rush does have a faster initiative as well. However, it only took him a blast from his repulsors, and he knocked him clean out of the building. Which, there's a ring out option. It kind of has to be to prevent somebody from running out and hiding or doing all kinds of shenanigans. So once he knocked him off the arena floor, that was it. He was done in about 2 seconds. It was a quick fight, which is appropriate with Sugar Rush. However, he got knocked out of the ring, out of the building. He came running back in and shook Sentinel's hand, showing him that no hard feelings. After all, he rolled with the blow, and so he didn't take an excessive amount of damage from it. And he's still very happy to have been in there and been in the whole thing, and yeah, he thinks Sentinel's cool. So that was a happy little fight. Very little. Then there was Gun Nut versus Bulwark. This was the not fair fight. Gun Nut is very, very, very limited. He's very happy with his powers, which basically allows him to summon up guns that he's owned. And he can fire them pretty much inexhaustedly. If he ever runs out of ammo, for him it's just spending a point of power and he gets a full clip again. So he can essentially never run out of ammo. Also, he can change his ammunition a bit, so he can fire incendiary rounds, but it's all gear-based, so he isn't the worst opponent a person could take down. Plus, he's kind of limited to the amount of damage he does based on his guns. Even so, he's still full of murka and just offensive. He's the piece of garbage superhero that everybody loves to hate. He used several racial slurs against Bulwark. Clearly not his fan. And their fight was painfully one-sided. Once Bulwark put up his force field, there really wasn't much else that he could do with the armor on and the force field. And then he went dense. He could flatten anything that Gun Nut could throw outside of a really good shot or a critical hit. And that's basically what it devolved into. He just kept firing and firing and just kept bouncing off, which frustrated Gun Nut. Gun Nut also has elevated levels of toughness, so when he was attacked by the force bolts from Bulwark, he took the shots and got knocked back a bit, but it took him a while before he flattened him unconscious. He had marginally more success when he switched to incendiary ammo, but not even that. Bulwark is a tough nut to crack. It really does take something special to threaten him. He is by far the most offensive of the group. And that was it. Eventually, he just moved up and started pummeling him with his elevated strength, and the suit, he went down real quick. So that was it for the first round. Again, half the field was eliminated, as these tend to do. So they were ready for a next round. They were all looking forward to who they were going to get to face next. Muscles got to fight Lady Titania. Lady Titania is a gifted who can summon animistic spirits, and she also has deep powers connecting her to the earth. Never really demonstrated those before, so one of the side effects of these battles is they are definitely showing the powers that a character has and basically showing their cards. Lady Titania never hinted that she was able to do this, but she was able to meld into the earth when Muscles began his attack. She summoned 2 large trees to attack Muscles. Well, they're only wood. He can deal with that. And then she basically caused a pair of arms made out of concrete to rise out of the ground, concrete and stone, whatever she could grab, and try smashing him. That didn't have a great deal of effect. Muscles tried to rip one out of the ground, and that didn't work. And then she kept calling her a coward, and as she was biding her time, she came up out wearing basically a concrete suit, and those 2 arms were the arms for the suit. So it was basically like a big suit of armor, kind of the opposite of powered armor. It's natural to armor, sort of. This made her a bit tougher. Unfortunately, concrete is still nothing that Muscles has a problem with his ridiculous strength, and she could really only just bash at him, which bashing him is not a good idea if you're looking to fight Muscles in a war of attrition. That just feeds his strength with his absorption abilities, so he got stronger and stronger, and he just basically crushed her armor. She gave up. Once she demonstrated that he could pulverize concrete, which was the strongest thing she could get, she gave up. She knew she was outclassed. Summoning up her little spirits are great gimmick and can beat lesser foes, but she didn't have anything that could really deal with Muscles. So, he won. Not quite by default. He felt it. He definitely spent a lot to get out of her. He first tried spitting on her with his paralyzing spit, too. It should be noted, since that one very profound time he had a great deal of success with it, he's been having a cold streak. Either he's missing or I've been rolling fairly well, so still, it's a great attack. So that was that fight, and then Sentinel got matched up against Bulwark in the course of the tournament pairing. So I got to sit back. I get to lean back and watch two of the player characters beat the sauce out of each other. Unfortunately, it was a little... It seemed like it was going to be very one-sided, quite honestly. Bulwark is much stronger when his abilities are up, and they all were given time to get all their power back. Bulwark had plenty of juice, so he just went dense, moved forward, and he tried. Sentinel tried. He tried his power blast to get through his protections. Couldn't really do it, or couldn't do a significant job that was going to slow him down much. Eventually, Bulwark closed. Decided he was going to just pick him up, carry him to the ring out, and throw him out for the win. Well, the grappling didn't work out so well. He didn't roll particularly well to get a hold of Sentinel, and since he did walk him over to the edge of the arena, Sentinel just basically took his hands and power blasted him in the small of the back and knocked him out from under him and out of the ring. It was a pretty smart move and good use of his repulsor. I think the player Sentinel has a hard time really appreciating how powerful that repulsor blast is compared to even somebody as dense as Sentinel is. That repulsor blast can really knock people around. Yes, Bulwark, thank you. I'll get these guys eventually. So that was quite the fight, but Bulwark got knocked out and left with good grace. It wasn't, a slugging match by any stretch, but on the other hand, they didn't really take each other to the limit and expose their strengths and weaknesses either. So they both ended up looking pretty strong. So then, that meant they survived another round, Sentinel and Bulwark, or Muscles. So, next match. I had them roll off to see who got what. Sentinel got the easier opponent. He got to go up against Boy Band. Now, Boy Band is a pop rocker with a really big hairdo. It's all funneled up and kind of like a mohawk, except it's not shaved. It's just all sculpted in this big, huge crest. And he's really good looking. He's got elevated levels of cool and everything, but his big power is sonics. He can attack with sonic energy. He can make amazing levels of music, very loud, but he can even funnel that into disrupting people, causing them to go deaf, and possibly even paralyzing them and shutting them down. Well, he tried that, and it sucked, certainly. Sentinel did not like the fact that his ears got blown. That wasn't fun. But he couldn't make anything else stick. So, basically, it was pretty one-sided after that. Sentinel decided he was going to use his Power Blast, which is an extension of his force field, just using it offensively. And he basically can make a force fist and slam people. That's how he's representing it. So it basically, he covers his own fist with his force field and just punches people for extra damage. Well, it took 2 strikes, I think, and Boy Band was down. He's not a fighter. His gimmick worked well to get him to the 3rd round, but that was it. When he was going up against the real fighters, he didn't have much of a chance. Then Muscles. Muscles drew the reincarnated Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley uses magic. He makes real magical effects, and he's demonstrated that he's got a very varied set of skills, and he's very good at picking at an opponent's weakness. And he hadn't really demonstrated a huge amount, but he's pretty sinister, and he learned not to get close enough to Muscles to let him spit on him, although he still tried. Got to stick close to what works for him. After taking a punch from Muscles, though, Crowley decided he was not going to do a slugging match. He transformed himself into a frickin' demon, 15 feet tall, a little spindlier than a Balrog, certainly, but with big skeletal wings and flames all over the place. Ooh, energy. This is not what Muscles is good against. So he hit him with a fireball attack, and Muscles like, oh, this sucks. Alright, I'm going to beat on him with my axe. Because he had an axe that was given to him for Christmas, I believe it was. And it allows him to hit things without having to bloody his own fists, do extra damage, and instead of hitting a foe and knocking him through a roof, it's slicing damage, which doesn't propel your opponents yards away, so you have to go and chase them down. So he can hack people down. He hit him. Hurt him. Didn't take him down. This demon form is tough. It's basically his ultimate attack. So they brawled for a little bit, and Muscles was winning. Let's be honest here. Muscles very strong, doing a lot of damage, not taking a tremendous amount himself, and I rolled a clean miss against him at one point. Muscles has just enough personal defense to make it challenging to hit him. Then the roof blew off. A circular hole got blown into the roof, bits flying all over, and a golden figure descended from above, standing about 12 feet tall, humanish, but just a gold human. And he pronounced to everyone in a voice that everyone in the room could hear that he was Adam, and he was here to claim his kingdom. Everybody present is just one of his people, and they will serve him, or he will show them the folly of their ways. Well, he did this with 70 gifted standing around, so everybody turns, looks at him, and goes, okay. Started blasting him, doing whatever they could. Now, not everybody is a fighter. Some people just booked and took off. A lot of the people who were observing thought it was part of the show, but it became pretty obvious that this wasn't the case, especially the destruction of the roof should have been a pretty good giveaway, but this has been so over the top already that, who knows. Adam ignored everything everyone threw, including members of the group. Saigo sent a sizzling power blast into him. He ignored it, shrugged it off. It did no damage. It's not that it went through him as if he was an insubstantial projection. No, it hit. It just stopped right there and had no visible effect. Everybody, including some people with some really interesting powers, threw them up at him when he came in and declared, yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah, that didn't really work very well. So, the group started reacting. Once they realized that if Saigos can't hurt him with her power blast, which is a pretty impressive attack, and all the rest of them can't do much, they need to figure out alternatives. Saigos' first idea, to her credit, was to get Bulwark's sister out of danger, because she, of course, was watching with the group. And she's wheelchair bound, and she has no powers to defend herself with, so this was the humanitarian thing to do. Of course, once she was safe, she was ready to go astral and go check this guy out. So, and with her new suit of armor, she can do that like that. The others had their own ideas. Sentinel split, literally, using his duplication power, and left the arena, going off in different directions to try to find where this guy's power base was from, or what was going on with this circumstance. Thank you to my technical advisor and stage assistant. Yeah, one of the gifted that the group hadn't really paid a lot of attention to is Nostradamus. Nostradamus has the ability to foretell the future at some extent, and he told Bulwark, his power is not actually here. He can't be attacked here and beaten. You have to find out where his power is and attack him there. Aha! So we have to get out of here. So he passed that on to the group. That's why Sentinel split and ran in two different directions, getting out of the arena so that he could search for wherever this guy's power was. Bulwark decided he was going to try to fly up. That's when Adam demonstrated his power. He raised his hand, and in his hand was this blue cube. And with a pulse of energy, he sucked power out of many of the gifted who were there. Out of the group, the only one who was affected was Sygos. Boom, 20 points of power sucked right out of her into this cube. That's not good in anybody's standards, and that affected a lot of the gifted who were present. So, this cube is now glowing brightly, and Adam looks pretty darn unstoppable. So, again, the group is taking off. Muscles is like, I ain't stop. Wait a minute, he's got that cube. Muscles jumps and tries to hit the cube with his axe. Whoosh! Swings with his axe. Hits! Rolls impressive damage. The only effect was it opened a small nick on the side of the cube, and Muscles lost 10 points of power with a successful save. Off of his cap. Permanently lost 10 points of power as far as we know. That sucked for him and definitely got the attention of everybody around. One of the other gifted who were there, Seraph, decided he was going... Seraph's a little special. Now, they know Seraph. They've had an encounter with him. He especially dislikes Hank. Hank DeVille, their friend, Devil's Advocate. But Seraph considers, since his gifts gave him flaming wings and the ability to generate a flaming sword and project blasts of energy, that he has become an archangel to deliver God's word to the pagans and the unclean, etc. So he charges forward. He never saw it coming. Adam clenched his hand, and all of a sudden, he exploded in silvery sparks, losing his wings, losing his sword, just becoming a normal guy and dropping to the ground. Splat. All those sparks flew and went into the cube. Now, Muscles did try to super leap and save him from splatting on the ground. He just missed. He's not a gymnast. He just got these super jumping powers, so he missed the trajectory a little bit. Splat on the ground. That man needs medical attention. So, Muscles starts thinking about what he can then try to do, and he decides to throw his axe. He missed. At this time, Bulwark was deciding whether or not he was going to try to make a grab for the cube too. But when he saw what happened to Muscles, he kind of started thinking that might not be the best idea. And he continued going up because he knew he has to attack that power source, whatever is giving him the ability to ignore everything. And as he gets up to the hole, he sees something. He sees that there's another man standing up at the hole, looking down. It's Mr. Universe. Now again, in case you've forgotten, Mr. Universe kind of looks like everybody's favorite grandpa librarian. He does not look intimidating at all. But he has two superpowers that are known. He has the ability to teleport anywhere in the globe. He's demonstrated that he can send people across the globe. And even though he's quite intelligent, he has a super logic ability that allows him to intuit things just by observing, kind of like Sherlock Holmes, where he can put things together with just evidence and do it very, very quickly and very accurately. And when Bulwark saw him, he's like, mental powers and incredible energy powers. Is that him? And Mr. Universe said, nope, I'm not him. And he was like, okay, what are we going to do? He did not see any kind of power source. He looked around. He just didn't see anything. Sentinel, getting out of the building, saw one thing. He saw a suspicious cluster of drones swarming in a big collected swarm. He fired off some blasts to take a couple of them down, but it was as much as he... Actually, he didn't use blasts. I think he pulled out his gun, his submachine gun, and started shooting. In the battle against Adam, again, many of the gifted were taking off. Sugar Rush was trying to run around and around in a circle to generate something or maybe get a chance to strike. He's not bright, but he is pretty brave. Sentinel told him to go and look for this guy's power source, so he ran off, not knowing really what he was looking for. But the rest of them were really picking their shots now because they weren't going to invite being snuffed out. Until one other one came up. Again, somebody they really didn't expect to contribute. The gifted known as Fake News came up and told him, "We surrender," and he believed him, because that is what fake news can do. He can persuade almost anybody of anything as long as it seems plausible. And he bought him around that he wasn't pummeling people. Once he realized that, he squished Fake News. And this wasn't just sucking his power away. He is gone. A murderous attack. And everyone's like, wow, okay, we know the stakes. This guy is capable of draining our powers. He is capable of killing us. This is pretty serious. At this point now, only the heaviest hitters are still around. Aleister Crowley has turned back to his normal form. He's kind of observing and preparing, but he hasn't done anything. Muscles has thrown his axe. A couple others are kind of milling about, but they're not really sure how to go about attacking. And then, as fate would have it, out of all the odds, Hank DeVille suddenly had teleported fairly close to Adam, using his special teleport ability, and he threw out one of those Crimson Arc energy blasts of his at his wrist that was holding the cube. And wouldn't you know it, devil's own luck, because that's how I rolled, it was enough to cause the hand of the giant to swing open, exposing the cube. And who knocked it out?
Aleister Crowley.
Oh yes, Aleister Crowley, thank you. Hit him with a bolt that hit the cube, jarred him, and the cube starts to fall. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, wouldn't you know who happened to save the day and grab the cube? Batman. Mm-hmm. Yes. Swinging from his bat line with a bag so he didn't have to actually physically touch it, whew, he scooped it up and swung into the shadows. Perfect Batman moment. And so that's what happened inside. Now, when she went astral, one thing that Cygos could definitely see at all times, she could see where the cube was, she could see where Adam was, because they are powerful psychic presences. She can sense those in astral space, no problem. She can see them through interposing barriers, they're that powerful. But she didn't see this energy source, so she glided up out of the building when she's astral, so she can pass through physical objects, no problem. She glided up, and she looked around. She really didn't see anything until she looked up and she saw that there's this bright point of light. It's about 8 times the size of a star and bright blue. It's the only thing she saw that was any kind of a hint as to what this could possibly be. So she zipped back to her body and phoned it into everybody. That got Bulwark to go, oh, gotta go. And now he's doing the Superman flight upwards, even though he can't see this psychic pinpoint. So he's just flying up on her say-so. So, hoping he'll find something. That's where we stopped. The fight is still very much on. Adam is still there and still demonstrating that he's got plenty of power. Without the cube, he's still a killer. The cube, no one knows. Batman's got it somewhere. As far as the rest of the combatants that are on the field, there's a couple of them. Demon Lord Demonicus is still there. Aleister Crowley is still there. Muscles is still down below. There's a number of people. But as far as heavy hitters that can really pose a threat to this guy, there's not a lot. So it'll be an interesting battle of the Titans when next we meet for another session of Mighty Protectors. Stay tuned, true believers. And until next time, thanks for joining me, and farewell.